All right, let me change gears slightly to their strategy, and I want to ask you first, Keith. What should a lot of times at this time of year, the strategy is brought up in draft rooms and in teams' war rooms about best available versus filling needs, right? And if somebody's graded out to be the best available, but he's a quarterback, the Redskins should not be, in my opinion, drafting that person at 34. What is your opinion on the best available versus filling holes debate and strategy as it pertains to the Redskins?
Yeah, I think if you go into a draft just trying to fill holes, it's a good way to blow a draft.
Okay.
Because you don't know what your holes are. You're drafting somebody that's hopefully going to play for you, at least for the length of their first contract, which is 4 years or 3 years. But you don't want to just say, like this year they have a need at linebacker, but next year they might. Keenan Robinson comes back. Suddenly they have a surplus of linebackers. So I think you need to draft the best player who's going to produce for you over the course of those first few years, because those are the years you have the player signed for cheap, and you don't have to spend that second contract kind of money to get that real good production. So for a first-round pick, early second-round pick, somebody who probably has first-round talent, you just want to get don't get the best player you possibly can.
All right, so best possible. What do you got, Brandon?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't know. I just think with the Redskins, they always seem to go after like the big name, and it never works out. I mean, RG3 is maybe one exception I can think of, but maybe it's more so in free agency that works out that way. But I just feel like you got a new coach. You want to build, your strategy, your new philosophy. Go after the guy that you think is going to fill that need.
Right.
And I mean, if it works that the best available guy does fill that hole, then hey, that's great. But I don't. Just the history with the Redskins going after the big names, it doesn't do well.
All right, what's yours?
I'm definitely best available. They were 3-13 last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
so there's a lot of players.
It's not like they have like 21 perfect starters and they just need that 22nd guy. Like they have needs all over the place. So despite what I said about the offensive line, I think they should go best available. Honestly, it's just whether the people choosing that are smart enough to get an actual starter. But people talk about
it's a quarterback or a receiver
Right,
at best available.
yeah.
That's where you have exceptions.
That's
where I
what,
don't like
Jonathan,
that.
people talk about the Vinny Serrano 2000.
That's right. The Kelly, Davis,
where they
and
took
Thomas.
Kelly and Thomas. The problem wasn't that they took too many wide receivers. The problem was the wide receivers they took couldn't
They
play.
busted. They
Deshaun
busted,
Jackson
right.
was right around that area. If they had
Jordy
taken him, no
Nelson,
one would be
too.
complaining. Yeah, Jordy Nelson.
Right.
And now 7 years later or whatever, they have to go out and get Deshaun Jackson anyhow. The problem is taking bad players. You want to get the best available player, and it's just whether they're smart enough to get a guy that can play.
You argue about that's a good point. I just think that there are exceptions to that rule.
There are. You
obviously.
don't need to draft a quarterback
Right,
this
right.
year.
I
Especially
think
if you don't
quarterback
trade.
is the one exception. And the Kirk Cousins thing
Everything
was
else is on
years and months of headaches because they were so convinced he was the best
Even
available.
places where they have starters entrenched, like cornerback and safety, they don't have necessarily the young depth. So
Yeah,
if
that's true.
they could grab somebody that they don't need to push into the lineup right away, but maybe could give them
All
something
right,
at
fine.
the end
Best
of the year.
available, fine. You guys.
Yeah, and how many years do we see starters go down for
All right,
a year
thank
in
you.
week one or week two? Starters gone for the year, and then your whole best available versus need. Have no idea what your needs are going to even be by week 3 of the season. So
Well, there's a lot of needs right now that we know that they need, and there will be players that can fill in. You just never know.